日発売。
So, summer is almost here. Remember summer vacation? At least in the United States, that was nearly 3 weeks of freedom. No school, no homework, no job, minimal supervision. Just watching cartoons from sunrise to sunset, playing video games, or maybe a quiet bike ride with no particular destination in mind. Or maybe one of my favorites, catching a frog or a lizard just to look at it and then eventually release it. You know what I'm talking about. Look at this thing. Look at him. I just can't help but be a bit nostalgic for those much simpler times. So, I grew up in Texas, thousands of miles away from Japan. But when I think about how children spend their summer vacations, there's actually much more overlap than you might expect, especially when it comes to the one universal kid pastime of catching critters just to look at them. In Japan, and across other parts of Asia, beetle battling isn't just some childhood pastime. It's become a full-blown industry. Inspired by the real-life behavior during mating season, where male beetles will fight each other by flipping their rivals off of logs, it has evolved into a competitive and often very pricey pursuit. Some rare species fetch very high prices, and the craze has even led to cases of illegal beetle smuggling into Japan. I think this is the perfect example of why we can't have nice things. Fortunately for us, we've got video games. Kabuto Kuwagata is a Nintendo Switch game that was released on March 15th, 2003, exclusively in Japan, exclusively for the Nintendo Switch. And this was released as a budget game, so let's keep that in mind as we go forward. It was released at 2,000 yen, which would make it about 1/3 of the price of a typical Switch game at that time. I did, however, get this game on sale on the eShop for 300 yen. I bought the game for 300 yen, and then I went on to buy all of the DLC for some reason, and those were 300 yen each, so I spent 1,200 yen in total on this package. So, It was probably made pretty clear from my intro, but Kabuto Kuwagata is a game in which you capture, collect, raise, train, feed, and battle beetles. It takes place in a fantasy setting, so this is an isekai story. Our protagonist starts off as just a regular kid who loves beetles, but the hobby is a bit too expensive for him, and fortunately or unfortunately for him, he's suddenly transported to a fantasy world in which giant beetles are on a rampage, and it's up to him to capture, collect, and train beetles to take down these other beetles and get to the bottom of the mystery of why this is happening in the first place. So there is a bit of a story there. Things do tend to just happen very suddenly, without much warning, but this is definitely a kid's game, so I'm not gonna make too much of a fuss about stuff like that.
手を突っ込んでみるしかないぜ。それ。うわー。
If you've seen or heard anything about this game before now, it was almost certainly about the developer's choice to use text-to-speech for everything in this game. Literally everything. Every piece of text is read aloud, whether it's a menu option, the dialogue in the game, everything is read. And there's no denying it does sound pretty goofy. It would be really easy to just make fun of that, but this is of course a budget game, very cheap game, and I actually found an interview with the developers of this game. It mentions the reasoning for this decision, and they wanted to make the game more accessible. So this is a game that targets children, especially young children, 4, 5, 6, 7, and some of those children wouldn't be able to read, so having the game read everything out to you in a synthesized voice is a way to make it more accessible to people who can't read at all. Whether you're a child or maybe you're an adult whose Japanese isn't that great. So looking at it through that lens, while it's definitely goofy and I'm convinced they could have found a way to make it sound better, I do appreciate the inclusion. It also seems they were trying to make a game that is somewhat educational as well. You'll notice that for every beetle you collect, you'll get this encyclopedia page with information about the species. And that brings us to what I consider to be the strongest point of this game, and that's the beetles. You can definitely tell that a lot of time went into creating these models for these beetles. They look great, they look very realistic. Even for a Switch game, I think these are quite impressive. So if the goal was to make a game in which you can look at beetles, they were definitely very successful. As far as the gameplay goes, there's not too much going on here. You're gonna talk to some NPCs. You're gonna look at this tree, you're gonna collect beetles, you're gonna do battle. But I think where we spend most of our time is in the raising and breeding of the beetles. For the battles, they're pretty straightforward. There's nothing crazy going on there. You just have to stop this spinner, ideally on the highest number, and it's pretty hard to miss if we're being honest. And they do have a few types. There's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors system going on. But where most of the gameplay is going to be is in breeding your beetles to the point that these numbers are higher and higher. And in that way, I think it does kind of emulate the real thing quite well, because in reality, you have no control over how well your beetle does in an actual battle in the real world. All you can do is raise it right and hope that it dominates when you put it on that log. You can spend hours and hours and hours raising and breeding these beetles, and there is multiplayer. You cannot go online, it's local multiplayer only, as far as I can tell, but you can take the beetles you spent your time raising up and battle your friends. And I think the fact that it doesn't have online is probably good, so neighborhood kids have to meet in person, bring their Switch. It's almost like the real thing. Almost. It's almost there. I don't know, it's a cute game. It's a cute little game. I like it. You know, something for the kids. For the kids, you know?
Konnichiwa, モデルのコロです。今日は私のバッグの中身を紹介していきたいと思います。じゃーん、こちらが私のバッグです。まずご紹介するのはこちらパンパンのメイクポーチです。少しだけ中身を紹介していきますね。こちらがハンドクリームで気づいた時に塗るようにしてます。続いてがこちら矯正器具です。サボりすぎて1年半ぐらいもうやってます。そしてなんといってもこちらカブトクワガタデラックスです。カバンの中身出しちゃいますね。だって今日のカバンの中身ほとんどカブクワデラックスでした。ということで私のバッグの中身紹介でした。またねー。
発売中
Why was that done on a green screen? Yeah, I love the advertising for this game. All of the ads I saw on YouTube were hilarious or just really goofy, really wacky. I didn't see any of the ads before I purchased the game. I just bought it on sale because 300 yen. But I went and looked for them later, and yeah, they're all unhinged, which is great. I don't know if this kind of marketing would have worked on children, which seem to be their main target demographic, but I love them. I feel kind of bad bringing up any negatives in a video about a budget kids game, but if I was going to complain about anything in this game, I do wish there were a few more animations. During the battle, you really only see one animation over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Same for the sound effects and the music. There's not a lot of variety, unfortunately. I know it's a budget game, but I could have done with a bit more variety overall. I definitely don't regret spending the 1200 yen I spent on the game and the DLC. If I had spent, say, 3000 yen at regular price, I might be a little disappointed. Unfortunately, I don't think I can go as far as to call this a hidden gem for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it is a gem. And I guess it's a bit hidden, but that would be a very loose interpretation of that expression. I mean, if you like goofy, synthesized voice having Pokemon at home type generic isekai anime, yeah, this might be a hidden gem. And overall, the game is just very nostalgic. It reminds me of summer vacation as a kid. It feels very retro. Its simplicity is charming. It's goofy and eccentric. And I think it's worth playing. If you like Beetles and this game goes on sale, I say go for it. Of course, I'm kind of mocking it, but after reading the developer interview, it's pretty clear that they were really interested in making a game that was both fun to play, very accessible, and most importantly, educational. They wanted kids to learn about Beetles and experience the things maybe the developers experienced in their childhood, just in a different way. If you ask me, I think kids probably should go outside, grab an insect, grab a frog, read a book about it. But honestly, buying the Switch game is probably more economical at this point. And of course, no Beetles were harmed during the development of this game. as far as I know. And I would be interested to see how they would approach making a sequel to this game. I'd like it to lean more towards simulation, where you put all your time in raising, breeding, feeding, and catching the beetles, and the battles would be very hands-off, especially if it were on a more powerful console like the Switch 2. But that's all, folks. You know I just love talking about goofy games. I have a long list of videos I want to make, but when I saw this goofy game on the eShop, it went straight to the top of the list. Have you played this game? Do you intend to play this game? Let me know in the comments below. Slap that subscribe button, give me the like if you want. As always, thank you for watching.